Hi and good afternoon. My name is Bradley Chapman and welcome to Raw Business TV. We're recording live again this evening in the latest edition of Raw TV's webcasts. And it's a great pleasure today to be joined by a fantastic guy, David Egerton, who owns a company called Promotion Creative. We've been speaking with David on and off for a few weeks now about his company, and I was really impressed by looking at his website and some of the things that he's done. So impressed, in fact, that I'd asked him to come on Raw TV and to talk to you guys more about Promotion Creative and what the company does, but more importantly, to give you some help and advice and to poke those thoughts, to evoke emotion about what you're considering in terms of your website, how you put it together, and what your content may be. But before we move on, one of the things I always do when I start out is talk about my own personal experience as an entrepreneur that's growing a business. And as you know, there's been lots of challenges in our journey across the last 3 years. And I probably know 1,000 ways now not to run a company at a great cost. One of the key elements of what we do, of course, we're a business networking company and an online business magazine publisher as well, is our website. And we've had two versions of our website. Our first attempt was called Million Impossible, and then we rebranded under the same name as our magazine, which you can see behind us, as Raw Business. And I still haven't got it right with the website. And there's a number of reasons why I've not got it right. So I don't want to steal David's thunder in terms of what he's going to speak about. But I just want to talk to you as somebody who has been through the experience, and then you'll associate. When I started out, wanting to build a networking company, I wanted to do this for a reason. I wanted to help people. I wanted to get entrepreneurs to come together. I wanted people to unite and share their thoughts, feel comfortable about talking about their mistakes as well as sharing the successes. And it's a very, very challenging thing to do, especially when you've got very little money, as most startup businesses have. And I was no different. In fact, in 2007, I started from a position of bankruptcy, so you can't be much more poor than that. In any case, we've had two stages in terms of our website. We've still not get it right, but these are the things that I now know should be done. I know that you need to speak to the right people, and I know you need to speak to those people who have had an experience of putting different websites together. What's going to work for your organisation? A company that perhaps has got the ability to think much further forward than you may have in terms of what technology your website may need in the future. And I think it's very important as a business owner, if you are reliant upon your website, and let's face it, most of us are trades on the internet highway today, are to get the website functionality, the design, the content, and everything else absolutely right. When you're starting out, there's many options you may choose, and I've done everything from having a 1, 2, 3 reg standard, quick upsite, through to a full sort of bespoke service that a web developer's got to develop in terms of hard coding. And now we've got a balance between having a website that's got a back-end CMS system that allows us to make certain changes. But it seems every time that we've developed a website, at the start you think you've got everything covered. And this is my experience. And of course, you go live, and as soon as you go live, you realise actually, pretty much as soon as you go live, this is my experience, that I've not got it right. I need to make changes. So, are there things that we can do today, now, when considering building our website, and how can we find the right people to talk to that are going to give us the right advice to get it right? And they say that was it penny wise, pound foolish, whatever the case was. Is that what I'm saying? Sometimes you think what's cheap becomes dear. And I know now from experience that if you want a fantastic website, at the end of the day, you have to pay for it. But you can pay for different stages, different developments, and obviously you can have a football stadium that holds 3,000 people. You can have a football stadium that holds 80,000 people. So depending on your business and what you require, it's so important to speak to people that know what they're doing. Promotion Creative, when I first saw their website, I loved it, and it was a talking point actually because there's characters on the website for David and his partner, and I loved it. And the branding was very clear. It was very warm, very inviting, and it drew me to talk to David and understand more about what he does. So it gives me great pleasure to be joined by David Egerton today. And I know David's going to very much enjoy going through a number of different slides with you in talking about Promotion Creative and websites in general. The title is 5 Things You Absolutely Should Do Before You Build a Business Website. So really fantastic and pertinent webcast tonight to help you guys that are either running a business, aspiring to start a business, or perhaps you've got a successful business, but perhaps your website's not quite where it needs to be. Raw Business, as you know, we are a business and entrepreneur networking company. We've got thousands of online members who are becoming more connected every day. We offer a mixture of marketing, advertising, and networking. And we're just like you. We're chasing a dream. We're trying to build a business. At times, it is the most exciting and exhilarating place to be, and other times, it can be the most painful experience, as you're going through this growth platform. I've experienced both ends of that, and I know that it takes so much strength and so much persistence to become really successful, and that's half the fun in the journey towards that. We're moving our business forward every day. We're learning from our mistakes, which is really great because then we know how to get it right. Most importantly, Raw Business membership at the moment is completely free, and there are so many things you can do to help promote yourself and your company within our network. And please feel free to register at rawbusiness.com and join us. If you'd like to sign in and use the chat functionality, then you've got to sign in and put a screen name in, and you can ask David some questions on the screen, and we'll come back to those once we've done the presentation. In the meantime, I'm going to pass across to David. And for him to explain more about what his background is and what he does and who Promotion Creative is. But in short, just a brief introduction, and I'm going to get closer to the screen because my eyes aren't that great. David's been in IT for over 20 years. He has been married for over 26 years. Well done. Congratulations, mate. That's fantastic. What is the answer to that? I've had 3 months. I'm not sure. You must have the key to success. Living in Hertfordshire, not too far away from. 2 daughters. I've got 2 daughters. What's your daughter's name?
Claire and Kim.
Claire and Kim. Okay, Claire and Kim, fantastic. David started his first business 25 years ago, which grew into one of the UK's leading suppliers of small business accounting and ERP software companies. The business was sold in 2007 and continues to trade successfully. Congratulations, well done. Anybody that exits the business is still trading has done something absolutely fantastically right. David then started a web agency building e-commerce website for retailers, focused on e-commerce for mid to large businesses, and also successful in doing so. With the desire to work with smaller companies, Promotion Creative was started in 2009, so a fairly new company, and based in the UK and also got offices in the USA. And one simple goal: build quality websites for small businesses that are easy to understand and are affordable. So this is absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the reins across to David now, and I hope you enjoy the webcast this evening.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Bradley. Thank you for the introduction. Hi. I just thought before we get started, it's probably worth just giving you a little bit of background about Promotion, simply because having been in business a long time, as I say, over 25, 26 years, you learn a lot along the way. Originally, I trained as a graphic designer, but I've always had a passion in all of my work with various clients to work with small business. And Promotion Creative was something that was created, although it started a couple of years ago, it's something we've been working on for quite some time. Now, just to talk about 5 things you absolutely must do before you build a new website. There's actually probably 100 different things I could think as points to raise, but obviously we've got a limited amount of time, and I think the key thing here is to get across the key points that everybody should be aware of when they're thinking about starting a website. Plan your website for success, not failure. Now, one of the points I've just made here is before starting any website project, it's important to understand what results you want to achieve. I'll give you a brief example of something that happens every single day in our business. And that is, this is a typical conversation where somebody will call us up. They're a small company, and they will say to us, we're looking for a small website. We just need a home page, an about page, a contact page, this type of thing. What do you think that would cost? In most of those cases, if you ask for a brief, there is no brief. There is very little preparation that's actually being carried out. And that is a very important point to make from the fact that if you haven't prepared well, if you just think you can go out and get a small website built without any preparation, there are going to be problems. And with that in mind, I just want to talk a little bit about cost. Because a lot of people, when they look at a website, especially if they're a small business, you've got your main is required here, it's required there, you've got a million and one different things to do. But what I always say to people is really the best way to look at things is not as a cost when you're dealing with marketing, when you're doing websites. This is something that is going to be seen day in and day out by potential customers. And really what you should be doing is thinking it much more as an investment, and what return you want to get on that from that investment. So really what we're talking about is it's your mindset. It's about, okay, what have I done? If you've ever written a sales letter or document to send out, you know yourself that you can spend a whole day writing this copy. It takes you the whole day, you keep reworking it. And yet here we are with websites where you want a number of pages, and often that work hasn't been done. Okay. So what are the questions that you really ought to be asking yourself? Number one is, who is my target audience? Now, a lot of people will say, well, I know who my target audience is, it's everyone. But actually, that's rarely the case. There will be certain things, certain businesses that you will be better to appeal to. Let's say, for example, you're selling luxury cars. You might say, well, everybody's my target audience, but that's not the case, because obviously it's got to be people who are affluent. Depending on the brand of car, if it's a Ferrari, for example, there's going to be more males than females potentially. There's all sorts of different questions and different demographics that go on. And as part of that, if you think of somebody who can afford to drive a Ferrari, you can probably get an idea of the sort of house they might live in, the type of holidays they might have, the sort of publications they're going to be reading. And therefore, when you write your copy, it's a question of appealing correctly to your audience. So what will they expect to find here? What questions will they want answered? Often when you look at a lot of small websites, is they start a process, they give a bit of information about something, but they don't go on to answer all the questions that people are likely to have. And that again is very, very important, because if you can't answer these questions, you can't complete these things, people will go to another website where they can get answers to those questions. Okay. What technology can I use to engage with my audience and increase my sales inquiries? Given the choice, if somebody could sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and watch a video, for example, or read a document that's 3 or 4 pages long, they'd probably choose the video option. So you have to look at your services and your products that you're potentially selling and think, what's the best way that I can portray this across? Now, I know there's obviously costs involved in producing video, but there are also a lot of tools that make it quite easy to produce this for a relatively low cost. The next thing is social media, social marketing. Again, it's very, very important these days to understand what is going on around you with Twitter, with LinkedIn, with Facebook, what's going on with YouTube, etc., etc. This is a massive market. Again, a lot of people say, well, I don't use Twitter, I only use Facebook for social reasons. But you really ought to look at what's going on a business front. It's relatively easy to add these sorts of things and integrate them to your website at a very, very nominal cost. Should I write my own copy? Anybody who's ever taken a full-page advert, on the back of some of these magazines, you can spend hundreds, £500,000 on an advert to go on the back of on that magazine. But often the copy is written internally by somebody who is not a professional copywriter. If you look at a lot of professional copywriters, what you will find is that they can tell you that by changing the copy and writing it correctly, that you might see a response that's hundreds of times greater from that copy that's been written. And it's exactly the same with your website. Copy is everything. Search engines, everything that people do is all around copy. If you're going to spend your money on anything, spend it on getting your message and your copy right, rather than having pretty graphics around the edge with pink flowers or whatever you think is going to look great, which is very subjective anyway. And then you've got to think about your technology platforms. These days, a lot of people are using smartphones, Apple iPhones, Apple iPads. We've got web TV coming along. There's now multiple channels on which people can access your information. If you're office-based, it's probably still largely going to be on a desktop PC. But if your audience, and if you're selling downloads for mobile phones, then really you've got to have a website that works on mobile devices. And there's a lot that don't, by the way. Why you must know exactly and precisely what you and your visitors want to achieve. Touch on a couple of these things. There is a guy called Steve Crook, and he's a usability expert. And I can give you a link to this if required. But basically, what he does is he takes a video on his website and he sits somebody in front of this business website and asks them to complete some tasks. And this is something that you could do quite easily. Take your existing website, if you think it's good, and think of what you want people to do and achieve. Take somebody who's ideally your sort of demographics. Doesn't have to cost you anything. You could use people in the office, but better still if you've got a good relationship with a customer, sit them down, just put them in front of the computer and ask them to complete these tasks. The sort of things we're talking about is even down to your navigation and what names you give to things. I mean, if we were dealing with car parts, do we call it gearbox or transmission? Dashboard or instrumentation? You've got to get to understand what people are likely to search for and what journey they're likely to want to take. And what you don't want to do is to disrupt them. We've all probably driven our cars home, from London, whatever. It's taken us an hour, and all of a sudden we pull up on the drive and go, I don't remember even driving home, but we're here. And that's because the experience with your car, you engage with it, everything is where you need it, it doesn't disrupt you or anything else. But if I was to, move the pedals around or something like this, you'd find that you'd totally remember that journey because it would be disruptive. And what you're trying to do with your website is have people arrive on your homepage and think, oh, this is of interest to me. And then, so they're going to browse first, they're then going to move through to the content. They're only going to move through to the content if you put things in the right place that allow them to read the next bit, the next bit. It's not a lot different to your sales pitch. If you have an internal sales organization, a good example is listen to salespeople and listen to the questions that customers are raising. I've seen this product, can you explain this to me, can you explain that to me? They're exactly the things that you've got to be thinking about, making notes of, stick them on a notepad, whatever, and collect all this information, because this is all stuff that you're going to want to put onto your website. And the better you give that experience for your users, the more likely they are to call you. So just going to talk a little bit about UX, IA, wireframes, and why should you care anyway? Well, first, let's just talk about UX. UX stands for user experience, and information architecture stands for obviously information architecture. But what does this really mean? Let's try and give a couple of examples of user experience. There are two aspects to this. One is this journey they take, and secondly, it's that when you complete a task, people want feedback. You've probably all completed a form, pressed the button submit to send this off, and thought to yourself, no feedback. Has it sent the form? Or worse, you've been on an e-commerce site where you've gone through the whole process, you've bought a product, you've put in your credit card details, you click the submit button, it says it's processing and taking your payment, and it sits there. No feedback, you don't know what's going on, you don't know whether your order's on there, you don't know if it's taking your credit card information, you're not a happy bunny. That is not a good user experience. And if we took that into the real world, let's just imagine that you have walked into a supermarket somewhere, you're out shopping, you need to go and buy some stuff, and you walk in and you want some Belgian chocolate. Where would you expect to find that? If I thought to organise everything that was Belgian together, so Belgian bread, Belgian chocolate, Belgian everything else, you can see very quickly that it'd be quite a challenge to do any sort of food shop. What you'd actually expect is that to be in the sweet section altogether. And therefore, depending on the complexity of your website, you've got to think about these things. So this is part of what user experience is about. And in terms of feedback, if we just imagine that there's a group of lifts, for example, you've called the lift, and whereas you'd normally have the numbers above that tell you it's on floor 20 or floor 15, so you can see it's coming down, take that away. So you haven't got that feedback. You just press the button, it's red, it's coming. But is it going to be here in 10 seconds or 2 minutes? You don't know. It's the same sort of thing. All these things disrupt people, and these are all very, very easy things to tackle within a website design. Copywriting. I do want to talk about copywriting a little bit because it's absolutely key. We have seen many websites where somebody who has had poor copy has brought in a professional copywriter, and they've rewritten that copy, and it's made a massive response to what's happening in terms of sales inquiries. Just imagine that you've decided to go and buy yourself a brand new BMW. You know, things are going great, business is fantastic, and you've gone off to buy yourself a brand new 5 Series. You walk into the showroom and you ask the guy for a brochure, and he gives you a single A4 sheet of paper. Just doesn't feel right, does it? I mean, you're spending a massive amount of money here, and here it is, a single sheet of paper. It's just the same on your web. If you're going to sell a product online, or you're trying to get somebody to buy a service that's relatively expensive, you've got to put enough copy on there that they can first answer all their questions before they're going to contact you. And again, we've seen this where someone can take a small amount of copy and turn it, in some cases, into 10 or 15 pages of copy, and you see a great big return on your response because people go, yeah, I get it, I understand it. You know, you're really going through your sales process with that copy. Okay, so how do you decide who should build your website? You know, should you use DIY? Should you use a web agency? Should you use commercial software, open source software? Is it a blogging platform? There's a whole range of things. Often when small businesses contact a web agency, there seems to be an assumption that, you know, we want a website, we want to be able to edit ourselves, you know, how much it's going to cost. But there is a huge, huge difference between different platforms. There's plenty of open source software, which, as you well know, is free. But some of that open source software is actually relatively complex. As soon as you need to tailor certain aspects, you're going to have to know a bit about PHP or whatever programming language is there that you've got to use. So you need to think very, very carefully what you're trying to achieve. You also have the option of going for a hosted service. And what these are systems where you can go, you sign up, you pay, you know, your £50 a month, etc., and you largely build your website using sort of templates and other tools, and you just do it yourself. And that can be pretty good for a small company. But there are some caveats there as well, because of course you're locking yourself into that platform, you're locking yourself into those payments. What happens if you decide to leave in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years? Can you take your data with you? All of these are questions that you need to ask yourself. There are also platforms that are built have come from a blogging environment, such as WordPress, highly successful, free software you can download. And there are content management systems that take a slightly different approach that you know, are really designed to be, in some cases, I think, relatively complex, and there are others that are designed to be relatively easy to use as well. So that should be part of what you're looking at. It's like, what is this platform? Am I locked in? Is it open source? What happens if I want to leave you? Can I take my data? All of those are questions that really you should be asking as well. So just explain a little bit about our own approach. Not obviously trying to sell anything here, but we've spent 2 years building this approach, and it is geared towards small business. The first thing is, let's just step back to design. Now, wherever you go, whatever you decide to do, one of the things that often happens when people are building small websites is they focus all their attention and most of their budget on the design. You know, they'll think, oh, we want this, we want that, we want whatever there. And in fact, you can design it or over-design it so that you've got so much going on that it actually detracts from your core message. The reality I say to people is either build it simple, nice, clean, professional, and spend your money on your content and your internal things that you need within your site, or at the risk of offending a few designers out there who have a very dim view of things like web templates, but we have professional web designers that have put an immense amount of time into building quality web-type templates that you can still tailor and customize. And that's the approach we've taken, because, you know, if you can think in terms of that design would have cost you £1,000 or £2,000, and it's suitable for your business, you just need to change this and that. That's a low-cost way of getting a high-quality design that's suitable for a small business. We also provide, as many web agencies, open source software. We think that's a good way to go. It's got to be a platform that's easy to use. But also, when you look around, if you look at a lot of web agency type sites, you'll find that they have entry-level packages that are $495, $595, etc. But look very carefully at what's included. A lot of these starter packages will say a 5-page website. If you just think about it, your home page, an about page, a contact page, a services page, we're there at 5 pages. What's going to happen when you add page 6? What additional cost? Is it a cost per page? Have I got to move to a different platform? Etc., etc. So you need to watch these things very, very carefully because it may sound like a great start, but very quickly it can become a problem. And really, you want to be in control. It's your website. You should be able to update it. You should be able to do everything you need to do really, really easy. What ongoing services are also included? What happens about support? What happens if this system goes wrong? If you do it yourself, and again, we get many phone calls from people that have taken a sort of a little bit of a do-it-yourself approach, and then something goes wrong, the website breaks, and all of a sudden, no one's got a clue how to fix it. And in some cases, some of those people are earning quite a large amount of money from that website, so it becomes a big problem very, very quickly. So you need to be clear about your support, your backups. Is your hosting separate? What happens if your host upgrades their servers? Is it going to break your website? Who's responsible for domain renewals? All of these things are questions that you really ought to think about. Just talking about sort of templates. These are just 4 examples. You can see very briefly of some templates. These are from a library, in this case, CSS Hub. There are hundreds of different template type libraries that produce high quality commercial designs. The approach that we take is to actually make the elements within those modular. So if somebody needs 3 key elements because they've got 3 key services, that's fine. If, however, they've got 4 services, then we can make the 4 elements fit where we would have had 3 elements so that there is some customization going on there as well. The goal is simply to try and find a way to make things affordable for small business without them having to make too many compromises. If you were selling a house, for example, and you need to put a new kitchen in that. Now, depending on the price of the house and everything else, you've got 2 approaches. You could take a bespoke approach and bring somebody in, and that kitchen's going to cost you many, many thousands of pounds. Or you could take a view that, it's a nice 3-bed semi, for example. You could go and buy black pack kitchen, choose your own doors, choose your own worktops, and you'd get a very good result, and it would cost you considerably less money. And in a sort of way, what we're talking about with websites is using reusable elements and things to try and bring that cost down for you. When you build a bespoke website, you've got to design it, you've got to go through all sorts of stages, you've got to code it, you've got to do all of that, and you've got to test it across multiple devices. When you use elements that are redone, that are reusable, you avoid that. So the time required is a fraction of what would otherwise require, and that's what makes it much more affordable. Okay, I'm just going to run along here to my next slide. So again, just sort of finishing, there are different solutions. I think what you have to do is to decide what's going to be right for you. What we realised, speaking to lots of businesses over the years, smaller companies, is what a lot of people want is, yes, they want all of these great things, but they want it to be highly affordable. So there are companies that do what we do, which is to package everything up for you, design everything for you, and to offer that at a relatively low monthly fee. And that monthly fee for some of the agencies that do this sort of thing can be less than you would pay another company just for your support alone. So you've got to weigh up all these options and decide what's going to be right for you. Okay, so just sort of going full circle back to the beginning, it's all about what you need to achieve. You should always think about what you want to achieve from this website. Why are you doing it? What result do you expect? How are you going to track it? What analytics are you going to put in there? Are you going to engage with an SEO company on a regular basis? We see plenty of websites that are pretty poor, to be honest with you, that they have spent no more than a few £100s on, and yet they're now spending £400, £500, £600 a month with a search company to bring lots of traffic to their website. But when they arrive on that website, it's not good enough that so many are going to leave. It would be much better to take some of that money and to address the things they need to within their website. So it's really important to think about that. I have a little saying when I see lots of people, and that's with a lot of small companies, because obviously you've got to watch your budgets. Do be careful that if you think too small, you think you can do everything yourself, and you're staying too small, you can often stay too small as well. There are lots of experts out there. Why try and do all your own marketing, all your own copywriting, all your own web design, all your own advertising and everything else? You're much better to concentrate on what you're good at, but to find companies, good companies, that understand your problems, understand you're a small business, and can find ways to get you a much better result at a low cost. And it's a combination of all those things that will have a really positive impact on what you're trying to do. That's it. Thanks for listening, and I'll hand you back to Bradley.
Okay, I've just come and joined the screen. Thank you very much indeed, David. Very, very interesting discussion and very frank. Do you know, the funny thing is, someone was talking to me last night, and I was going through the business in the last 3-year journey, and I was trying to make sense of the next steps I need to take. And he said to me, one of the things he said to me was, Bradley, you're focusing on the urgent rather than what's important. And sometimes when you're focusing on what's the urgent things can be you're dealing with issues, you're dealing with concerns, you're dealing with the thought process about taking the business from one position to another. In other words, you may be in a just keeping the business alive stage, or firefighting. What's important, and this is what you reiterated to me, what's important thing about it is your customers. It's your customers' needs, is what your customer actually wants, your user experience, as we've been talking about. And now I need to move myself from dealing with the urgent to dealing with the important. Your website and what David's just been discussing about, without a doubt, is the important. It's your business card. It's your customer-facing shop. If you're an e-tailer, then your online website is the same as what someone's experience would be is if you're walking into Mothercare or into Starbucks, and you've got to sort of create that and understand that. I wanted to ask David a couple of questions. When somebody starts talking about websites and you're an aspiring entrepreneur and you're starting out a business, at times when you talk to a web developer, it's like when I was talking to someone the other day about accountancy or law. You feel sometimes you're a little bit of a sort of backstep because you don't quite understand it. How do you make your customers that come to you that perhaps are startups, they're not familiar with websites, they're not familiar with what they need to do to be at the level where they're ready for you, rather than to take them right back to the caveman stage? How do you do all that to give them early instructions, say, like, this is what I need you to do before you come to us, this is what I need you to consider? And are there any guidelines? I know it's like going back to infant school kind of thing, but we don't all understand.
It's a really, really good point. I think let's just talk slightly about some web agencies, or any business in fact, because a lot of businesses focus on their profits, how they make money. So where what they should be focusing on, if they address the needs of their customers and deliver a service or a product or whatever that their clients want at a price that their clients are happy to pay, actually it will take care of their own profits. What we do in our business is we have a series of questionnaires. So when somebody calls us and says, oh, we're interested in a website, the last thing we try and do is to sell anything. Is to say, okay, what have you got? What haven't you got? Here is some information we've written. Here's some articles we've written that you can have. Take these away, read them. And they talk about these areas to try and get people in the mindset. Usually when somebody comes to us, and so you can see we've got web solutions start at £49. But even there, when we speak to somebody, often when we give them this information, they will go away and it will be another 3 or 4 weeks before they can come back and actually talk to us now at the point that ideally they want to talk to about originally. You've got to look after your customers. Customers, all of us know you've got to look after customers. And I think most people, when they're dealing with a service-based business that's key to their business, they also want to deal with Okay, so web agency, someone who is going to be with them for the long haul. You know, someone who's going to look after them, who's going to give them the guidance, somebody at the end of the phone who can sort their problems out. Yeah, and these things that people have to weigh up. You know, it is tough.
It's scary for them. I mean, you know, when you first get your website, it's daunting. And the way that I do it is I think to myself, first of all, okay, what is it I've got to put it on? I draw it out on a piece of paper. I start drawing it out. I draw out where I think I've got to put things, and I down.
One of the things I do when I go and see people, I still carry a sketch pad,
yeah,
and I get my pencils out and people look at me, and I'll draw elements there. One of the things we've done with our new frameworks, for example, is we now have a board, you know, sort of A3 type whiteboard, and we have cutouts of all the different elements, like patterns. If you think about a calendar is a calendar. If you think of your video recorder, you're used to certain controls being in a certain place. So you have all these different bits. It's a bit like sliding on. So it's right, okay, so you want a, you know, flash image at the top, or you want a JavaScript image here, we want 3 service elements. So you just drag this on, and within 5 to 10 minutes, we can build a really good design. Yeah. Shoot that with your iPhone, and they go great. Yeah. And that's a very low cost way of avoiding having consultants everywhere telling you you've got to spend thousands of pounds.
Sure.
Honestly, Bradley, there are people I go and see. There was one I saw last year. They spent £16,000 on a website, and they said to me, "What do you think?" And do you know what? If I wanted to overcharge, I don't think I could have got past £3,000.
Lovely.
Really important that people look very, very careful.
And that's just me. That's just me. Well, listen, we've had a fantastic webcast today. It's been really interesting. I can vouch for David, and I've discussed with David about the opportunity of us doing some other things more closely together and trying to get more clients involved with promotion and creative. And now that we're into 2011, I need to sort of compound that. I need to bring that to fruition. So I'm absolutely certain there's going to be some more information coming from David. He's one of the founding Raw TV sponsors of a company that agreed to come on air, which we're thankful for. So I'm very much looking forward to see how things develop. It may well be that we look at putting some more extensive pricing lists to you guys, so you can have a look further at promotion. But in terms of contact details and being able to contact the company, obviously by all means do so. We'll give you contact details in just 1 second. The next time on Raw TV, we've got Hallmark IP coming on, trade marketing and protecting your brand. That's tomorrow, 3 p.m. Very, very important webcast again. Protecting your brand is another key and important part of growing your business. And if you're going to come up with a name that you're going to use as a URL and as a name you're going to use to trade, wouldn't it be a challenge or difficult for you if after 2 years of trading and someone said you've got to stop using this name because we already own the rights and you're infringing our trademark? I've been there, I've been down that road, so we're very, very pleased to have these guys come on. Now, just before we go, we say thank you for listening to Raw TV. I'm just going to ask David to repeat his contact details and repeat his website details and how you can get in touch with these guys. Even if you just want to give them a call and have a quick chat with them about what you're thinking, I know that David and his team will be very pleased to take the call. So David, would like to provide your contact details, please.
Probably the easiest thing to give you is our web address, which is www.commotion.co. That's just commotion.co. Don't need any UK. And from there you will find all our contact details. You'll see my details on there, and that's the easiest way to get hold of us.
Superb. Thank you. Listen, thank you on behalf of myself, Brad Chapman, and the team at Raw Business, and from David. And thanks so much for joining us. The webcast, you're watching it live now. Please do feel free to give us some feedback. If you're not watching it live, you're watching it in a recorded version. Again, the same principles apply and the same contact details. So listen, guys, thank you very much indeed for watching. We've had 2 powerful webcasts today. We've had Charlie Mullins, millionaire plumber in London, and now back at Chelmsford HQ with David Eggleston at Commotion Creative. So thanks for watching. You have a great day. Thank you.